What is going on with y'all, man? Look, y'all already know what's going on, man. It's Black Balloon. All right, we're gonna try something new with this video. New setup. Just to try to comply a little bit more with these YouTube guidelines with all this AI stuff going on. We gotta let YouTube know I'm not AI. All right. So y'all remember, in the last video we had a small clip with Craig G. Lewis, right? This is the podcast on the screen. I've told y'all already the 2 hours is worth listening to multiple times. Honestly, you probably have to listen to it a couple times just to catch everything he's talking about. And so, what I'm about to play right now was me actually going back and listening to it again, right? And this wasn't a part of the two clips I had originally to play for y'all. But this one was very interesting because he told a story about a young boy who was possessed by the spirit of his father. And he would uncontrollably dance whenever his father danced. His father was a part of a tribe that he didn't remember the specific name. I'm going to let y'all listen to him tell the story. And he also talks about Bone Thugs and Harmony right after this. And, some of the spirits and Ouija board stuff that they used to play with. Then I'm going to show y'all this clip from a guy who was close, or I guess did music with Bone Thugs. His name was K Chill. Not really sure who the guy is, but we're gonna check that out as well, man. This is very very interesting. It's kind of mind blowing. Goes right back to what we were just talking about with music frequency and how some of this music is very, you know, controlling, hypnotizing, especially with Bone Thugs and Harmony music back in the 90s. But enough talking. All right, look, we're gonna go ahead and get into this one.
And drink and cuss, but we did never related to, the only to get the glory from us. Not on purpose. Right. Even though he is, we're not gonna get him credit.
Right, yeah.
Because we didn't want to ever get too far away from God.
That's it.
We had these Christian backgrounds.
Yeah.
Back then we had a Christian foundation somewhere.
Yep.
And so we didn't want that. But God began to show me that a generation was going to raise up because of fatherlessness, because their fathers were imprisoned. They were going to begin to express themselves, because you don't have to know your father for that to be what your father sins to be passed on to you. You don't even have to know it.
That's true.
And he didn't have to be around. The best example I have for that was, can I just go? Come on. Okay.
Be free.
So I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I did the Truth Behind Hip Hop at a church. And so we were having like an altar call. And I remember a lady came up, and she was, she might have been Nigerian. No. She was Zairian.
Okay.
From Zaire. But she came up and she said, "I want you to pray for my son." I said, "Okay." And I looked at him, and immediately the Holy Spirit said, "Ask where his father is." So I said, "Well, where's his father?" She said, "Oh, his father's back home in their tribe."
Yeah.
I forgot which one it was, Tutsi or Hitu, one of those. And he's in his tribe. She said, "But he's possessed by his father's spirit." I said, "What do you mean? Like, what?" She said, "When his father dances, tribal dances, he uncontrollably dances. So whenever his father over there, it could be any time his father dances, he dances."
Really?
And then he started moving like this. And she said, he's about to do it. And the boy just started dancing. Yeah. And so I ended up with the power of God casting that spirit out. But that's when I realized the connection that a boy has with his father. It's beyond what we know. It's not, it's not just you give birth to someone, but you actually give more than that. You give you give of yourself to that boy. So whether you're around or not, he's going to be influenced by you. And that's what ended up happening with prison. Guys went to prison. And so when their fathers were in prison, they wanted to they begin to express themselves like their father. So they wore the do rags in the streets, because in prison the do rag represented the hair. That's women's hair. That's the closest you're gonna get to women in prison. Come on. Then they walk around shirtless, tat themselves all up, sag their pants, show their underwear. All of these different things that were happening with the hip hop subculture. It God began to tell me that it would become the norm. It would become the norm. And so,
Mm.
that vision, God began to just kind of nourish that vision. This is after 3 years of me seeking him. He began to show it to me, and then I spoke the message.
Now, that's really something to think about because he put it in a way I've never really thought. And a lot of, I guess you could say troubled teens growing up, outside of being influenced by their environment, influenced by rap and so on, they're also still very much connected to their fathers. I mean, you could say connected to their parents in general, but it sounds like he's more speaking on like those negative demonic type of spirits that they're connected to from their fathers because he related it back to, the sins of your father still being passed down on you, even if you don't know him, even if you're not around him, the things that he does still affects you. And it almost seemed like the whole thing where the son was dancing when his father would dance is that he was spiritually tied and connected. You know, he used the word possessed by the father's spirit, that he was actually doing the things his father would be doing in real time. Now, I don't know if maybe his father was just, dancing in that moment and then he started dancing as well, or he was possessed by those Corey Bond spirits that he also talked about. And he's where I learned that term from and what it actually meant because he talked about it with the whole Michael Jackson thing, right? But he tied that together in a way I've kind of never thought about it. About, you may actually be possessed by your father's spirit in a sense. The things that he's going through and he did is connected to you as well. So those little small traits that, you're doing to express yourself, but it's not in a good way, you may actually be getting from your father. Just something, it just kind of blew my mind to hear that, especially young men, young teens, or fatherless men who grew up without a father. It kind of gives you an idea of some of the things you might have been influenced by. Your dad went through those same things. Very interesting, y'all. Very interesting.
Remember on Halloween, I spoke the message. I had some magazines and I had some CDs, and I began to show people, the Bone Thugs and Harmony had the Mr. Ouija backwards message, which they just came out and talked about. I don't know if you've seen. No, I didn't see that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bone Busy, I think it was Busy Bone, came out talking about the Mr. Ouija and all of the stuff, just confirming everything from way back then. But I was showing people how you hold it up to the mirror and read it, and you speak into your own soul. That's what it was. It was written backwards, and you hold it up to the mirror, and it was a confession that you speak, and kids were speaking it. And so by kids doing that and kids, buying into this culture and this idea, they opened up our community to that spirit. Wow. And so now when you see young black men, they look totally different now. But God showed me that way back then. We're talking in the 80s. People thought I was crazy. No way. Black folks ain't gonna worship the devil. No way. They're not gonna get the pentagram and the Baphomet and throwing up the signs, and no way. They're not gonna, grow their hair out long and the locks and stuff, and the earrings and tatted up and stuff. And people, because nobody could see it, it just did not exist. So they thought I was crazy. But God trusted me with that information to the point. There was no social media back then. Nope. But he took me all over the world. All over the world. So we were in our bubble. So we don't.
Uh, I want y'all to listen to this real quick before we talk about Bone Thugs and Harmony a little bit, right? So, like I said, this was a guy named K Chill. If y'all know who he is, um, maybe I could type up his name or something and see if he's like really directly related to Bone Thugs and Harmony. But look, check this out. And I want to read some comments from y'all under this video. Check this out.
Who decided to call it Faces of Death? Was that like a label move or was that a Bone move?
Man, I'm sure it had to be the bomb because already Anna be calling herself Leatherface and shit, and they had they they used to be. I mean, we grew up off all that Faces of Death and Texas Chainsaw. They used to actually be fucking playing with that Ouija board and shit like it. That's one thing I'm gonna say. I never fuck with them with that Ouija board, none of that shit. Like I would always just, these like I said, these are my dudes and shit, and we roll, and we would ride or die for each other. But it was like I always was chill, and they always was bomb. And not to mention like this real shit. Like people will people come out as artists and shit and everything, and it's a lot of act. That's what they call them, an act. You know what I mean? Because entertainment or whatever. But there's a lot of that shit was like from that Bobby Jones situation to they literally used to be trying to get me to come right in the graveyard and shit, and I'll be like, y'all fucking crazy. And we'll link back up the next day, play video games, smoke weed, kick it and all that, drink 40s or whatever. But like all that Ouija and graveyard shit and all that shit, they know they can miss me with that shit. They know I was never on that shit. And yeah, that is ironic that I'm the one motherfucker that was still on.
So, check this out real quick, y'all. One of these comments said the whole Ouija thing made the established in 1999 album very creepy. It was like you could actually feel something just from listening to it. Now, this is exactly what we was talking about with the frequencies in the last video. He said it was something spiritually awkward about it. These are comments from regular people over 3 years ago. That album was very addictive and hypnotizing, especially for kids, but he called it his favorite album to this day. Somebody said I would come home from school and listen to it front to back for hours every day. It was addictive. Another person said, eventually I became possessed by the album. Not literally, but I couldn't get the music out my head, and it made me curious about evil. Little did he know, you were possessed by that album. You were possessed by those spirits. And yes, it was literally. He said he couldn't get the music out of my head, and it made me curious about evil. Y'all, this is exactly what we just talked about. This is exactly what we just talked about. Literally, y'all. Look, let me type this album in real quick. Just see if it'll pull up whatever. I mean, it just looks demonic. Look, this giant skull in the background. It looks demonic. You could basically say that's in a form of a pentagram. I mean, we know everything Bone Thugs and Harmony was about back then was very demonic, but I wanted to show y'all this because it relates directly to what we were talking about. Directly. People commenting 3, 4 years ago talking about they were, possessed by the album, listening to this shit every day, all day, front to back. Very strong demonic spirits that were coming out of this album and possessing people. Now that if that's not, direct evidence of what we were just talking about, I don't know what is, honestly.
Played the Ouija board and we wrote a song about it. So we wrote a song about pretty much everything that we did.
Right.
And we stopped playing the Ouija board because like we was sitting on a bunk bed and Lazy was asking who was gonna die first in his family. And he was like, when he found out it was somebody that he didn't want, so he threw the Ouija board, and then they picked it back up, and then beds started falling down. So a whole bunch of stuff started happening.
So some real shit.
Right, and I ain't fucking with that shit no more. So,
Right.
you know, we learned our lesson hands-on. And then when Eazy-E, he was like, y'all got to do that song, man. I like that Ouija song y'all did, man. And then he started talking backwards. And then after he passed, here comes the marketing and the promotional train, and here comes the company.
Right.
You know what we need to do? Let's make some money off of it. So they put that mysterious back in the days when, you know, CD covers and reading CD covers was the thing to do. So, you know, that it manifested from there, and it, you know, I think it was a whole lot of.
Did that you feel?
All right, y'all. Man, my computer died right in the middle of me trying to finish this video, but we just gonna finish this last half how I usually do, right? Y'all know I wasn't gonna skip over that part where he was talking about Bone Thugs and Harmony and the song that they made two versions. They made Mr. Ouija, and then they made Mr. Ouija Part 2. The Mr. Ouija Part 2 is on East 1999. Or Eternal 1999, Established 1999, whatever the album is called, right? In Part 2, they had a very dark demonic voice in the background. And I'll take it as that was the voice that was saying it backwards, or saying the chant or the spell backwards. And this is basically you connecting with those spirits. You know, he was saying they will hold it up in the mirror, and you were speaking to your own soul. You were basically opening yourself up for a demon, for demonic possession in a sense. You saw the comments we were just reading. So kids at that time, or even adults listening to that album, were literally being possessed by demons, y'all. I was a Bone Thug fan at one point. Not like a real Bone Thugs fan, but I do know a lot of their music. But I definitely wasn't the type to go listen to all of their music all day, every day. But there are people out there who are influenced that much, and they will listen to the music that much. And those people are the ones that, you know, Craige G. Lewis is speaking to. If you go listen, I don't really advise you to. I did it just for research purposes, but I immediately rebuked it. Part 1 just kind of sounds normal, but it still sounds very eerie and hypnotizing. We'll use that word as well. And the lyrics are like, Ouija, are you with me? Mo murder, mo murder, mo murder me now. Dear Mr. Ouija, could you please tell me my future? Will I die of murder? Will I die of bloody murder? And it's literally the entire song is just talking to Mr. Ouija and mo murder, then murder me now. Bloody murder, mo, bloody murder, mo. It's literally just murder, bloody murder, murder me now. Like, it is beyond demonic. It is I don't even know how they even thought to make that kind of music, but I guess it's not surprising when they're literally saying they were into the Ouija boards and connecting with demonic spirits. And then Mr. Ouija Part 2, there's that demonic voice in the background, and it sounds like it's saying it backwards. I didn't listen too much. I just wanted to get a grasp of it, because it's been a very long time since I've heard a song off that album. That song, you don't even have to go listen to the rest of the album. Just, you could check a little clip of that out, and it is demonic. You know, like, I don't want to even hear that in the portal of my ears. I can't have that coming into my head. It is demonic. It is beyond demonic. So I completely agree. Those kind of songs and tracks and chants and spells and rituals in the songs, they were opening kids up to demons, murder, bloody murder. You know, some of the darkest, hypnotizing, addictive music that there is, straight out of the pits of hell. Some of those comments literally said they would listen to it back and forth, front to back, all day. Bro, straight out of the pits of hell, y'all. Man, at first I didn't even really think this would be a video like mostly about Bone Thugs, but it's kind of turned into it because, it's just all an example of, this demonic frequencies and tones that are in this kind of music and everything we listen to, down to the most simple songs. But I do got one more clip from that podcast I want to play y'all. Kind of goes a little bit deeper into what we're talking about now. Then I think we'll come back and wrap the video up. That is not the only thing that, we could watch in this video. There's a lot that he talked about. So, yeah, we'll just go ahead and play this clip. I'll come back, man, and we'll wrap it up. All right, check this out.
One of the most shocking things that you were sharing was when you started to deal with Michael Jackson. That was one I've never forgotten. In fact, it was the Bone Thugs. I remember Bone Thugs. I remember Jay-Z. But Michael Jackson, that one is the one that threw me. Do you look back at that and say, hey, maybe I was going too hard. Maybe I was reading into it.
Well, they used some of it, my research in his court cases, so I don't think I was going too
Really?
far. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, and it was what God revealed to me that he was doing. And not just him, but anyone who, submits to the Aleister Crowley's, teachings, because he taught musicians how to channel an old one, Nephilim, old one, to become famous. And that's what people don't realize. Like, if Jay-Z or somebody walks in a room, people just faint or gasp or, oh.
Yeah.
Beyonce walks in a room a whole night.
Yeah.
Them homosexuals.
Yeah.
You know how they do them Beehive folks. They just, and you wonder, like, because of music, the band director plays at the school. Ain't nobody screaming for Teacher Willie that teaches the choir. He got some nice music.
Yeah.
But nobody's screaming and falling out. There has to be something else. Where there is something else, these guys are taught by Aleister Crowley and the Law of Thelema and those things that he was into, talking to a spirit called Lim. He learned how to channel spirits from the flood. And so there are, through blood sacrifice, through pedophilia, through all of these things, these artists can welcome one of those old ones. Now, who are the old ones? These are the spirits from the angels that came down in Genesis 6, came down, mated with men, created beings. Those beings, God flooded the earth to destroy them. Some of them were 30 feet tall. Now, if you got a 30 foot tall being, he's going to get everybody's worship, And so these guys were used, but these spirits were used to, or these Nephilim were used to getting praise and worship. They were gods, like Greek mythology and Roman mythology and even Yoruba mythology. These are all superhumans with superpowers, where they were half human, half angelic from another realm. Well, God drowned all of them during the flood. That's what the flood was for. That's why nobody could get in the ark with Noah, because everyone's blood was contaminated by this that had happened. And so nobody could get on the ark but Noah and his family, right? And so those, when they lost their bodies, their spirits were hybrid. So they can't go to heaven. They can't go to hell. They roam the earth. And that's why the Bible said they roam in they look for dry places. They're roaming the earth and they're looking for hosts. That was the creation of demons. They're not fallen angels. They're actually spirits, disembodied spirits. And so they're looking for bodies. Well, Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, those people that studied the Law of Thelema, those people that studied the mystic arts and some of the lost books of Solomon, which, my part 14 of Truth Behind Hip Hop, I go in depth about Solomon. There's a lot about Solomon God showed me. Very interesting guy, to say the least. But they read his books, they get into his mysticism, and it taught them how to control spirits and welcome spirits in and become a host for them.
Oh my God.
Well, when these spirits that used to get that worship get in a person, now that person becomes polarizing. He walks in a room and everybody's like, oh, and music can't do that. A song, like if I release a song, they can't make you look at me that way. If I'm in a movie, that's not going to make you faint and pass out when you see me. There is a spiritual side of this because they've channeled an old one, and depending on which one it was, that's the level of, a power that they're able to operate with, as musicians and artists and different things.
Yo, Mr. Lewis, man, he ties it together so well. I'm just impressed. I'm impressed with the way he ties it together. We're talking about channeling spirits again. And I have XXX up on the screen because it reminded me of the video we did where you remember that phone call that got leaked when X was in jail and he was calling his friend to get this spell so he can do a ritual and summon the goddess Hecate. However you say her name, I don't care. The goddess Hecate, right? A goddess from Greek mythology. Says she was a goddess of magic and witchcraft. Hecate was the ultimate source of arcane knowledge and supernatural power. Invoked in rituals and spells, she was seen as the patron of witches and magicians, granting access to forces beyond mortal understanding. Hecate was linked to the underworld, particularly as the goddess of crossroads and the guardian of the gates of Hades. She was also associated with ghosts and spirits. Her presence was felt at crossroads, both literal and metaphorical, which are seen as places of transition and decision-making. She was believed to guide travelers and protect those who cross these boundaries. Remember, in that phone call, X was trying to summon her so he could get out of jail and the stuff that was going on with him. He could basically be freed from it. So he was willing to summon this deity, this being from those old disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, basically. He said it, 30-foot tall gods. He was willing to summon her and allow her spirit to possess him. And that is what these artists do. Now, when we think about it, and, he said they study Aleister Crowley, as he says it, Thelema, his religion, on how to summon these spirits, how to let the spirits use you, how to welcome them in. It's a process through human sacrifice, the P word, with the little ones, I'm sure. That's why that is rampant in our country. These spirits, of the old are running. They just here running it up. A simple way to put it. He put it together to where now we can understand why they sacrifice artists so much, or why other artists sacrifice another artist or someone beneath them who they, got love for, but they're willing to let them go. Because they have to sacrifice in order for these spirits to take control. These spirits want blood. These old gods, these old disembodied spirits, the Nephilim, they want blood. They want sacrifice. They want something done in order for them to host you, basically. Like he said, they're looking for bodies. They're on earth looking for bodies. And if you are willing to do a couple of things so they can host you, they will make you famous. They will make you so famous that people will pass out when they see you because of that spirit that is connecting you to when you walk in a room. Now, it's crazy because I don't know if y'all know, I got to kind of pat myself on the back because I used to talk about that a lot. I used to talk about that when someone passes out from seeing an artist or someone famous, that is not natural. Doesn't happen naturally. That is a demonic spirit that has, somehow grabbed a hold of your energy field, your aura. Something has pierced that energy, and, you passed out from it, because that's a demon. That's a powerful demon, deity, spirit in that person. Like Michael Jackson making all them people pass out. That's why he was so famous. He used Aleister Crowley's rituals and, his knowledge, and he summoned some of the most powerful spirits. That's why he's like probably the most famous artist ever. XXX as well. He summoned very powerful spirits. To this day, the day that I am recording this right now, he is still top 20 as in monthly streamers, and I think on Spotify or something like that. He's like closer toward the bottom of the list now. I think I top 20 to top 15 for monthly views. The man has been dead supposedly almost 7 years. Is unheard of for a guy who was barely on the scene and known for just a couple of years. Went from SoundCloud to, huge, y'all. He summoned a very powerful spirit to attach to his fans and his listeners. Same way with a lot of these other artists who still carry a major presence even after they're dead and gone. But I think the way he ties it together, man, is amazing. Really dope to listen to what he has to say about, how these artists, how people summon these spirits using the knowledge of the Lima, Aleister Crowley, summoning these old spirits, man. And I thought one last thing, I thought it was very interesting on how he said their spirits are stuck here, they're cursed here because they're hybrid. Even though they're dead, their spirits are still hybrid, y'all. Never heard that before. That's crazy. They were already half angelic and half human. Their spirits are half angelic and half human, which ultimately turns them into a demon, which ultimately allows them to still cross the realm, to still cross the veil, go from being just a spirit roaming looking for bodies to a person almost. Once they find a body, they possess a body, they have the spirit to possess. They have the power to possess, y'all. This is real. Never heard it put like that. The spirit that they have is hybrid. Oh my God, does it, man. It really makes sense, y'all. It really makes sense. This is interesting right here, y'all. I don't know, man. I don't know. Look, if y'all want to hear more from that podcast, or just as in me reacting to it and talking about it, y'all let me know, of course. I think the channel name is We Need to Talk, and y'all will find the video if y'all want to go watch it yourselves. Like I said, if y'all want to hear more about it from me, let me know in the comments, man. Really hope y'all enjoyed this one. So yeah, man, with that being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm going to see y'all soon. I'm out.